America and Israel were built by hardworking people. Let me speak about a relationship that is not just diplomatic, not just strategic, but deeply moral. The unbreakable bond between Israel and the United States. Today, that bond is stronger than ever, not because of politics, but because both nations share a rare commitment to freedom, security, and human dignity. America and Israel were built by hardworking people, shaped by faith and sustained by the belief that good must triumph over evil. And here's a truth many ignore. Peace in the Middle East does not only affect the region, it affects America. When Israelis and Palestinians live in dignity, when extremism is defeated, you feel the ripple in American life. Less polarization, less imported hatred, less anti-Semitism, and more unity around shared values. And we must express gratitude. We thank President Donald J. Trump and his administration for standing firmly with Israel and helping shape the framework, a framework that moves this war towards its conclusion, bringing home every remaining hostage, dismantling Hamas governing and military capabilities, so Gaza is never again used to launch terror. And as long as these two nations stand together, terror will not prevail, and the free world will remain strong. On October 7, while Israelis were being butchered, burned, raped, and kidnapped, anti-Israel protests had already begun before Israel responded, before a single airstrike. And what were they chanting? Not peace, not empathy. They chanted globalize the Intifada, a slogan that literally means spreading violence attacks against Jews worldwide. And they chanted from the river to the sea, not coexistence, but a call to eliminate Israel. Imagine that. While families were searching for their children, crowds were chanting for Jewish genocide. Why? Because Hamas launched a massive disinformation campaign through Al Jazeera, Telegram networks, social media activists, and campus groups, turning Hamas into victims and real victims into liars. Meanwhile, Jewish students were threatened, assaulted, and told they deserved it. And the same voices who preach human rights went silent about Jewish suffering, silent when hostages were raped. This is not activism, it's hypocrisy, an ancient hatred with new slogans. So let me be clear. You cannot chant for globalizing Intifada and claim to stand for justice. You cannot call for Israel's destruction and pretend you care about human rights. If your activism denies Jewish pain and calls for Jewish annihilation, you are repeating history's darkest chapters, and we will call it out every single time. Since the ceasefire began, reports from inside Gaza are horrifying. Hamas has been executing, torturing, kneecapping Palestinians they accuse of collaboration, stealing food, or simply questioning their authority. They raid homes using ambulances and hospital corridors. Yes, you heard me right. Ambulances to hunt down alleged informants and carry out public executions to instill fear. And while Gaza suffers, Hamas hoards aids, steals foods, and sells it back to desperate civilians at inflated prices. These are not Israeli claims. This is what Gazans themselves, the people trapped under Hamas's rule, say. Gazans live in an absolute terror. Many want Hamas gone. But one word of criticism can mean torture, execution, or disappearing in the night. And here's the contrast the world refuses to acknowledge. In apartheid Israel, an Arab judge sent the Israeli prime minister to prison. In Gaza, criticizing Hamas gets you killed. This is the difference between a society of accountability and a society ruled by fear. So when activists chant, "Free Palestine," I ask, free Palestine from what? Because today, the greatest oppressor of Palestinians is not Israel, it's Hamas. A Gaza without Hamas is a Gaza that can finally breathe, rebuild, and choose leaders who value life, not death. If you truly care about Palestinians, stand against the group that kills them first. Hamas terrorizes its own people, and the world must stop ignoring this fact. Hanukkah is about Israel's legitimacy, its ancient legitimacy, its biblical legitimacy, its historical legitimacy. When Alexander the Great died, his empire was split. The Ptolemies ruled Egypt, and the Seleucids ruled Levant, including the place where I am right now, Jerusalem. But the Greeks wanted to Hellenize Judea, to erase the Jewish way of life, their worship, their identity, their sovereignty. And then came Judah, the Maccabi, and the Hasmonean family, a Jewish resistance movement fighting to restore Jewish independence in Jerusalem, cleansing their temple, what we call in Arabic Beit al-Maqdis or Beit HaMikdash in Hebrew, reclaiming their victory. And here is the part most people never hear. In John 10 in the Gospel, it says, it was the feast of dedication in Jerusalem, and Jesus walked in the temple. Jesus, peace be upon him, went to Jerusalem for Hanukkah. He recognized it. He honored it. He preached there during it. So, to my Christian brothers and sisters, if Jesus acknowledged Hanukkah, you must understand what it stood for. Jewish sovereignty in the land of Israel. To my non-Zionist Jewish friends, your own ancestors fought and died for this holiday. They believed in Jewish self-determination long before modern Zionism existed. And to my fellow Muslims, we claim to follow the prophets of Israel, Dawood, Sulaiman, Zakaria. Then let's respect the story of their descendants. Respect the people who preserved their faith, monotheism, under oppression. Hanukkah is not just candles and blessings. Hanukkah is the celebration of a Jewish people who refuse to disappear, a people who reclaimed Jerusalem once and are living that miracle again in modern day Israel. This is the true message of Hanukkah. Light overcoming darkness, identity overcoming erasure, sovereignty returning home. Every few months, someone, somewhere, accuses the United Arab Emirates of something dramatic. A recent example, the BBC's so-called investigative report about sex trafficking in Dubai. A story filled with exaggerations, falsehoods, and zero understanding of how this country actually works. Let's be honest, when a country's economy is collapsing, its cities are facing record crime, and its streets are filled with protests, division, and debt, tries to lecture the UAE on morality or governance, it is not journalism, it's projection. The accusations are not about the truth. They are a cover, a distraction from domestic failure. Let's talk facts. While the UK economy struggles with stagnation, the UAE's GDP continues to rise. While young professionals leave the UK looking for opportunity, they are finding it. You know where? In Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Sharjah. Why? Because here there is safety, stability, leadership, and vision. Because the UAE doesn't waste time blaming others, it builds. In London today, you see division. In the UAE, you see unity. Over 200 plus nationalities live together peacefully. In London, you hear complaints. In the UAE, you hear construction. So when I hear these attacks, I always remember they are proof of the UAE's success, proof that our growth, innovation, and global influence have become impossible to ignore. If anything, the world should be studying the UAE model, how a small desert nation became a hub for technology, tourism, investment, and coexistence. So dear London, before you accuse others, fix your own problems first. Because while you talk about decline, the UAE is building the future. Let me address something the world needs to hear. Not from me, but from Hamas officials themselves. In interview after interview on Arab satellites channels and their own media, Hamas leaders say it openly. They will never demilitarize. Not now, not after a ceasefire, not after any negotiation. They say it proudly because they believe keeping their weapons is the only way to repeat another October 7th, no matter what they tell Western audiences. And here's what many in the West still don't understand. Hamas's ideology isn't political, it's theological. Their doctrine teaches that the day of judgment will not come until Jews, not Zionists, Jews are destroyed. How do you convince a movement built on that belief to lay down its weapons? You can't, not unless they value Palestinian lives more than their own genocidal ideology. And Hamas has proven again and again they do not. If they cared about Gaza's future, about dignity, schools, or rebuilding, they would disarm today. Because the only thing standing between Gaza and peace is Hamas's determination to stay armed and stay in power. So Hamas uses every tactic, delays, excuses, stage denials, manipulated media, anything to avoid disarming.
Because without weapons, Hamas collapses. Without weapons, their ideology has no teeth. Without weapons, the people of Gaza can finally breathe. And here is the truth. If Hamas honors an agreement to disarm, I am so sure Israel will honor this commitment. And the war will end. Until then, demilitarization is the key they refuse to touch. Because Hamas never cared about freedom. Only domination, destruction, and repeating October 7 again and again and again.
Here is my message to the Australian people following the terrorist attack against our Jewish friends in Australia while they were celebrating Hanukkah. I am sad to say this, but I saw this coming. Australia, unfortunately, has tolerated hate speech against Jews for too long. We all saw the protests chanting, "Gas the Jews, kill the Jews," with Hamas and Al-Qaeda flags waving in your streets. That doesn't say words. That emboldens terrorists. So I ask, until when will you confuse freedom of speech with freedom of incitement? Until when will you allow pro-Hamas protests and pretend they are harmless? No, you don't get it, No. They support Palestine. That's a lie. I support Palestinians living in dignity side by side with Israel. That is very different from calling to eradicate Israel or attack Jews. And if you're afraid to say this because of the word Islamophobia, which doesn't exist, by the way, hear it from Arabs and Muslims like me. We know radical Islamists far better than you do. I commend the Muslim hero, Ahmed al-Ahmed, who saved lives with courage. And I send my deepest condolences to the Jewish community of Australia. I will celebrate this Hanukkah with my Jewish friends in the land of Israel, in the land of Judah and Mattatyahu and the Maccabees. Hanukkah is the story of the Maccabees defending Beit HaMikdash. We call in Arabic Beit al-Maqdis, which is the Jewish temple, by the way. And the story of how the Maccabees defeated the Seleucids. Why wouldn't a Muslim honor that? Educated Muslims do. Radical Islamists don't. Let me remind you, anti-Semitism starts with Jews, but it never ends with them. United we stand, united we fight, and with God's help, bi'izrat Hashem, we will prevail, inshallah. There are stories that break your heart and stories that must break illusions. One former Israeli hostage, Guy Dalal Gilboa, finally revealed what Hamas did to him. He said he was sexually harassed, humiliated, and abused in captivity. And when he looked at his captor and said, "This is against Islam," the terrorist pointed a gun and a knife at his head and threatened to kill him if he ever spoke. That moment tells you everything. Because here's what many in the West still don't understand. Hamas doesn't act according to Islam. It acts according to radical Islamism, the twisted ideology inherited from the Muslim Brotherhood. The same ideology every moderate Muslim country rejects. They opposed Hamas, not because they oppose the Palestinians, but because they know what radical Islam looks like. They lived it. They fought it. They defeated it. And Guy's testimony is the reminder. No freedom movement harasses hostages. No liberation movement humiliates civilians. No resistance group sexually abuses captives. Only terrorists do that. To anyone in the West still calling Hamas freedom fighters, listen to this man's story. Look at what they did to him and to women, children, and elderly. This is not resistance. This is not liberation. This is barbarism wrapped in ideology. And every time someone excuses Hamas, they spit in the face of victims like Guy. May his testimony open the eyes of the naive and end the age of illusions once and for all. When I read the article on the national interest titled "What Kazakhstan's Entry into the Abraham Accords Means," I knew that many people don't really get why Kazakhstan did this. As the article puts it, Kazakhstan's entry was strategic and deliberate. It brought Astana closer to President Trump and gave it the polish to outshine Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Turkmenistan at today's C5+1 summit at the White House. So what does Kazakhstan's move mean, especially for the Middle East, for Israel, and for the Muslim world? It means many things. First, peace. That matters because this initiative is no longer just Israeli Arab. It's Muslim majority countries choosing peace with Israel, and that's deeply symbolic. Second, for Kazakhstan, it's about diversification economically, geopolitically, strategically. They are located between Russia, China, and Iran. By joining this club, the Abraham Accords, they position themselves as a bridge between Central Asia and the Middle East. Third, for Israel and the United States, this expands the playing field. It signals that the Abraham Accords can be more than regional. They can become global. It's a vision of Muslims and Jews working together, not locked in conflict. Fourth, for the Arab world, this is a wake-up call. If Kazakhstan can make this move and see clearly that Israel is a partner, not a threat, then other Arab and Muslim majority states can do the same. When you hear people say the Abraham Accords failed, remember Kazakhstan's step. It's real, it's meaningful, it's the next phase, because peace doesn't sit still, it moves forward. This is the kind of moment we must embrace, not ignore. Let history record it. Kazakhstan's entry is not the end of the Accords, it's the beginning of bigger countries to join. When the dust finally settles over Gaza and this terrible war ends, the world will start talking about ceasefires, peace plans, and rebuilding projects. But amidst all that noise, we risk ignoring the single most important factor in Gaza's future, the orphans. I say this clearly. The orphans of Gaza will be the most powerful force for either radicalization or reconciliation. A child who loses both parents, or even one, is not just grieving, he or she is vulnerable, angry, and easily manipulated. Tell that child, Israel did this to you, and you plant a seed of hate that could grow into another war, another Hamas, another October 7th. It only takes one whisper in a mosque or a refugee camp to turn pain into rage. But there is another way. These children are not just victims. They are also an opportunity to build, not to destroy. If we, the Arab world, not the West, not the UN, but we, the Arab world, take responsibility, we can save them, and through them, save the region. I believe in peace through prosperity, not peace through slogans. You cannot bomb extremism out of existence, but you can educate it away. You can heal it. You can replace it with purpose. So here's what I propose. 1, identify and relocate Gaza's orphans, not into refugee camps, but into homes, schools, and loving communities across the Arab world. 2, educate them from primary school to university. Teach them Arabic, English, Hebrew, and any language that opens their minds instead of closing them. 3, providing therapy and healthcare, because trauma doesn't heal by itself. It heals with care, love, and compassion. 4, give them a future. Make them doctors, engineers, teachers, artists, leaders. Let them become bridges, not bombs. Let's be honest. If we don't act, others will. And not all of them will do it with good intentions. Iran, the mullahs, will try to raise them as soldiers. Militant groups will recruit them. Extremist ideologies will prison their minds. And we will have no one to blame but ourselves. We must open our arms, not because we are guilty, but because we are responsible. After World War II, Europe took care of its orphans. They became the backbone of modern democracies. But where children were abandoned in Somalia, in Afghanistan, in Iraq, they became targets for radicalization. We must learn from history. Yes, we must care for all Gazans. That's our moral duty. But the orphans come first because they are the most fragile and, if ignored, the most dangerous. If we raise them right, they will not join Hamas. Believe me, they will bury Hamas. If we give them hope, they will not throw stones. They will build bridges. I dream of a future where a boy from Gaza grows up in Abu Dhabi, studies in Riyadh, works in Dubai, visits Tel Aviv, and tells his own children, I lost everything in the war, but the Arab world gave me everything back. That should be our legacy. That should be the real beginning of a permanent peace.